Ron G Morning Show, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. only on WSAN Radio. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. And it is a beautiful morning here. It is straight up top of the hour. And I have a guest right here. We talk off and on. And he was the one that introduced me to the Corporate Transparency Act. And we talked about it a couple of other times, and I bring it up all the time. And introduce this is Steven Hutchinson, tax strategist. This guy right here could tell you some things that will curl your toes when it comes down to Corporate Transparency Act. Because believe it or not, Steven, there's a lot of people out there that haven't heard about it when I bring it up. I bring it up and I talk to them about it, and they act like okay, so what I'm supposed to do about this? And I'm trying to tell them exactly what is going on. I'm trying to get our there we go. Somebody said the video feed wasn't there. I just put it on there. But I'm trying to tell them that we are trying to inform them what's going on. Did you log in again?
Yes, sir. Because I wanna log in from my laptop.
Okay. All right, that's
I'm going to bring this one here. I'm sorry.
That's no problem. We could when you get your see now he's all right. Look at him. He's got all these different gadgets there. He's like me, Inspector Gadget with everything. But everybody, again, this is Steven Hutchinson, tax strategist. I think I had you on back in February when I first heard about it. And people, this is no joke. This is no joke at all. So, Steven, tell us the ins and outs about it, because I've been talking to our listeners. I bring it up almost every day on my show to let them know about this. And this is something that's coming to the neighborhood near you come January 1st.
Absolutely. So if I could just give a little, like a broad view of it, it's called the Corporate Transparency Act, right? So now this is an act that is actually passed through Congress, so it has become law. It's actually enacted in 2021. So you can all do your research, and everything that I say, I always encourage people, do your own research, right? Because none of us are perfect. So my attempt is to provide you with the most accurate information possible. But hey, do your own research to confirm everything. So, Corporate Transparency Act, as the name implies, Corporate Transparency Act, right? So it sounds like, they want to be able to see inside of the corporation to make it transparent, right? Because if it's not transparent, that means I can't see through it. So, Corporate Transparency Act, enacted in 2021, legally enforced in 2024. So, what is the Corporate Transparency Act? It manifests as the Business Owners Information Report, BOIR. Anyone and everyone should look it up. It is a law that is enforced by FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Network, or the enforcement network of the U.S. Treasury Department, also known as FinCEN. So they are the enforcers, right? Because the interesting thing about laws is you can have as many laws as you like, but if nobody enforces them, doesn't mean anything, right? Like there's probably, in the city you live, there's probably a law against jaywalking. How many of you jaywalk? And how many of you have ever been penalized for it, fined for it, and jailed for it, right? It's a law, but no one enforces it. Okay, so this law evidently may be actually enforced. So now, what is the requirement? The requirement now is that all business entities that are registered with the state have to fill out this document called the Beneficial Owners Information Report, right? So this was never required before. So it is like brand new in that sense that businesses have never been required to do this before. As far as I know, maybe years ago, but like within the last decade that I know of personally, we as business owners have not been required to provide this type of information to the government. So that's the basis. Now, this what you can do is you can go to the actual website, BOIR, Benson. You can go to that website and check it out for yourself. So what you have to do is you have to file this information. What is this information that they want? It's really basic information. And here's another thing you should know is that you could do this yourself, right? You don't have to pay someone else to do this, right? You can, and a lot of people do and will, depending on the complexity of their quote unquote corporation, right? But if you have a basic, fundamental, single member LLC, you can do this yourself by providing the information that they're requesting, right? And most of that information is, you can go directly to their website in order to do this and provide them with this information, which is basically your name, your birth date, your nationality, your residential address, the extent of your ownership, right? And same thing for your whoever are owners of the company. So anyone who owns more than 25% of your company also has to provide their information. Okay, so evidently, according to that rule, if someone owns less than 25%, they're not required to provide their personal information. So like I said, they want your name, your nationality, your birth date, your residential address, your business address, and the extent of your ownership of the company, right? And that's the basic information that is required. And it could take approximately 10 minutes. Ron, didn't you do yours?
Yeah, it took me about 10 minutes to do mine online.
So it takes about 10 minutes. Mind you, there are people who are charging $5,000 to do this for you, right? Different law firms and so forth. So now the question is, or if I could just go back over this, who's actually required to file? First thing, I want people to know, if you are a sole proprietor and you never registered your business with the state, let's say whatever kind of business it is, you could be braiding hair, you could be selling things out of the trunk of your car, you could be, selling things on the internet, whatever. If you have not registered an LLC with the state, you are not required to fill out this form. Okay, so know that. The other idea is that I don't like the whole mood behind this of making people panic about it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just the kind of society that we live in. Everything is panic. Oh, everybody panics for everything. It's not about panic. Just understand it, do what you're supposed to do what you can do, and move on with your life. So now, an interesting thing about this is which companies they're actually targeting for this, and what's supposed to be the purpose behind this. So the purpose behind this is supposed to be so that the government can cut down on money laundering, drug money, illegal funding and fraud, and these types of illegal financial activities, right? So this is the theory behind creating the law. So who do they want this transparency with? Now, when I first heard it, and it said Corporate Transparency Act, I thought you were talking about Microsoft,
Yeah.
Tesla,
Yeah.
Google, Alphabet, right? I thought you were talking about major corporations, law firms, insurance companies, Like these are where we have observed major scams. But guess what? They're all exempt. And
Mm.
here's the rule. The only companies that are not exempt that have to file this are companies with 20 or fewer employees. So if you have more than 20 employees, you're exempt.
Mm.
Okay. And there's also a financial requirement. I have to look that number up again. It's not on my report here, but it's approximately, if you're making like less than approximately $5 million a year, you're exempt.
Yeah.
Excuse me, if you're making less than 5 million, you're required to file. If you're making more, you are exempt.
Mm.
Okay. So you see that picture there?
Yeah.
So now, should I talk about the penalties now, Ron?
Oh, definitely that. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right. So now, right. Okay. So let's see. The penalties are you can be fined up to $500 a day for a maximum of $10,000. So if someone is fined, they can be fined up to $500 a day, up to a maximum of $10,000. So the fine can't be more than 10,000, but it can be up to $5,000 a day. And depending on the reason why, I failed to um, fill out this application, that gives me a little bit of possible leverage where you say, all right, well, that's a reasonable reason why you didn't do it. Whatever, you were ill, you were out of the country, you were, whatever the case may be, right? So there is some potential there. But if it's just a blatant, like denial or just to ignore it, they could fine you up to $500 a day. Okay. The other aspect of the penalty is that one can be sentenced to prison for up to 2 years. So, that is very undesirable. I don't care who you are. That is completely undesirable. Because if you have lots of money, you might say, oh, what's $10,000? I have plenty of money. But what about 2 years in prison? You got plenty of time? I
Well,
don't think so.
well, they will have time then if they go to prison for 2 years after fine. Yeah.
Right? So now, if you don't mind, I'd just like to mention, because personally, I think certain companies are being targeted here because of the narrow requirements for who has to file, right? Here's a short list. This is not a complete list, but here's a short list of companies that don't have to file. Securities reporting issuers, government authorities, banks, credit unions, depository institution holding companies, money services businesses are exempt. Just imagine that. Tax exempt entities, which kind of makes sense a little bit, entities assisting a tax exempt entity, large operating companies are exempt. Subsidiaries of certain exempt entities and inactive entities, they're all exempt. Major accounting firms, right? Like Anderson. I don't know if you remember the problem that Anderson had back in the Exxon, or back in the, what's the name of that company? Enron.
Enron, yeah.
Enron with Anderson. Anderson was the accounting company that cooked the books for Enron.
Mm.
Billions and billions and billions of dollars. Well, they're exempt. Okay. And now here's another uh, fun fact. Most Black owned companies that are registered with the state are single member LLCs, approximately 90%. So it is my uh, personal opinion But looking at the whole picture and looking at who's being affected by this, we are inordinately being affected by this requirement. So we just have to become more aware of what we must do and do what we must do and get ourselves out of that category. Hire 25 people. Okay, I know it's easier than it says, but make more money. But I'm just saying that these would actually put us in a totally different category where we would not be subject to these types of rules and regulations.
You know, what's funny about that is this: most minority owned LLCs, they get the LLC so they don't be sued for their personal money. It's only for the business. But yet they jump in on this right now. And so with you going and applying or whatever you do for it, so it's a way of them keeping an eye on the money that you're making to make sure you don't get out of hand. And how many people, Black-owned businesses, could handle $500 a day fine? That'll put them out of business in 1 week. Now they will
Yes.
payroll. And so it seems to me they targeted this group to basically, I'm gonna say it, to wipe them out.
Apparently so. I mean, you like my teacher, one of my teachers used to always tell me, he says, Stephen, you judge a tree by the fruit it bears. As simple as that, right? If it bears cherries, it's a cherry tree. Bears oranges, it's an orange tree. You don't have to ask the tree. You don't have to ask anybody what kind of tree it is. Just watch the fruit it bears. The fruit of this act is exactly what you just said. So, I'm sure people in lawmakers and in Congress and all, they would say, oh no, no way, that's not, no, that's not what we intended. We're trying to stop money laundering and we're trying to stop, you know, human trafficking and all this.
Mhm.
Then my response would be, well, you're looking at the wrong place.
I,
Okay.
I agree with you because they're looking at, when you start to mention all the financial institutions who are exempt from this, in the past, those are the ones who did money laundering
Yes.
and got caught their hands in a cookie jar, like Enron, for instance, like you said. So why are they coming down to the small businesses? Now, one question I want to ask, because I got somebody asked that question already. So they say, if I go down and get a DBA through the county, does that also mean I'm the sole proprietor, so I don't have to sign up for that? Is that correct?
Yeah, that should not be it because you're not registering with the state. So they're talking about state registered entities. As far as I understand, with a DBA, that's just a local thing where you're just changing the name of how you're doing business. You're not registering. You're not becoming a limited liability company, right? Which is what they call a disregarded entity.
Mm-hmm.
You're not registering with the state, but the state has to give you a charter, right? The limited liability charter. You enter into an agreement with the state. If you don't do that, then you're just functioning, as a sole proprietor, which also means you are personally liable for all the activities of your business. So in that situation, if someone were to sue your business, they would be suing you directly as an individual.
Oh,
So all of your quote unquote assets would be exposed if you have any. A lot of us don't really have many assets to even protect at, at certain stages of life. So, then there are other ways which you could protect your assets. There's insurance, get business insurance, right? So if something happens, as a matter of fact, I was having a conversation with a barber the other day. This barber's talking about, how much money makes and all this, they're making over $75,000 a year cutting hair. I said, well, you should look into getting some insurance. And he said, what insurance? I said, perhaps you want to insure your hands, right? There's certain types of insurance where you can get insurance for your income. So if you are incapable of generating income, like if you're a barber, you need your hands. I mean, I don't know how you could cut hair without your hands. But if there was a severe accident or something happened to your hands, you could have insurance that would say, okay, well, now we're going to be paying you because you injured your hands and you can no longer generate revenue in your profession. So that would take care of it. So there are other ways you could protect your assets besides just the LLC.
Okay, I have another question right here that somebody brought up. So you're a sole proprietor, but you still file with the state because you're selling things for taxes and stuff. Well, will they have to do that too if they're just a sole proprietor? I know in Texas, you have to do that if you're going to sell goods. You got to get an EIN number and all that stuff. Will that affect them too?
Well, now using an EIN, that could be like a gray area. And mind you, what I'm giving here, I'm not giving financial advice or tax advice. What I'm giving you is my personal opinion, and you should do your own research. But because I'm in this industry, I do happen to, have absorbed a lot of information so I could just share it with you. But again, my request to you is that you check with your tax professional, which I also highly suggest that, you develop a relationship with a tax professional, somebody somewhere, to have a consistent understanding of your tax situation. Because if you go to a different person every year, everybody, they can tell, well, I don't know what happened back then or why they did this or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So now have an EIN is issued by the federal government, right? That's federal. That also is not state. So I would say, you need to confirm that.
Okay.
But we do know without doubt, if you have registered with the state and you have a limited liability company or a partnership with the state or a C corporation with the state or an S corp, you are required to file. Now, anything outside of that, including nonprofit organizations, right? They're exempt. Sole proprietors are exempt. So you just need to know exactly what you are, what your company is. Because I'm sure there are many variations of how people are doing this in their local places. So there's no way, that one person would know like every section for every county in every state in the country. But just the general rules, I'm giving you a general template so that you can confirm that. And it's better to err on the side of caution.
I agree.
Than it is to, err on the side of, neglect.
Okay.
Right.
So how frequently must a company update their beneficial ownership information? And are there penalties for failing not to update it in a matter of time? Is there a time limit? Let's say, for instance, this is May of next year. You turn around, you got somebody else that came in business with you that's over 25%. Should that be updated then? Is there a waiting period or anything like that?
30 days.
Okay.
30 days. So then if you started your entity before January 1st, 2024, you have until the end of 2024 to register your company. So basically, you can either call it January 1st or December 31st. I think it's really December 31st. So you have that period. Now, let's say you started an LLC in 2024. You fall under different rules now. If you started in 2024, you have 90 days, right? So if you started it this month, you have what? You got 90 days from now. So you got November, December, January. So you can actually go into January. You can go past December 31st because you started your LLC in 2020. Now, if you start your LLC in 2025, you have 30 days
Okay.
to register. And to answer your question, as far as I remember, Ron, if you have to update your report, then you have 30 days to update it. So if, like you said, for instance, if someone you bring in a new partner in the business, the IRS wants you to update them on that BOIR report in 30 days. Or I don't know if the $500 penalties are going to kick in, but that's the implication. Because remember, they say up to. So, in other words, what the implication is, well, Stephen, you brought in a new member in February of 2025. You better report it by March 2025. If you don't, $500 a day, up to 10,000, up to 2 years in prison. That's the implication. How they apply that, I don't know exactly, but those are the parameters. Whereas in one other aspect is if nothing does change. Let's say, like, for instance, I've registered all my companies, all the ones that I remember that I had. Right? I've registered them all, right?
Yeah.
So if nothing changes in 2025, I don't have to do anything in 2025 or in 2026. I would only have to do something if something changes. And the craziest thing is that even if your personal residence changes, you have to update it, right? Because I'm sure that most people would think, well, as long as my business is in the same place, I'm good. Oh, according to them, Stephen, even if you move, we want to know
Yeah.
where'd you move? Even if your place of business is in the same place, your personal residence change, update your BOI.
Wow. See, that's going to be a lot of people to remember because I guarantee that's going to fall through the cracks of some people. Oh, I forgot. And they don't want to hear I forgot. Here's our
Right.
here's our bill for forgetting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you something. They're targeting the LLCs. So what happens if somebody
LLCs and partnerships
okay.
and S corps and C corps.
So what happens if somebody removed their LLC? They don't want to be an LLC anymore.
Oh well, you could do that.
Okay.
Then you're not if you don't have a state sanctioned entity, you don't fall under because the other the one of the on that list of exempt entities, it says inactive entities are exempt. So if I have an inactive entity, technically speaking, it should be exempt. Now, what is their requirement for what's an inactive entity? Does that mean that I don't know? Does that mean I didn't do any business for the whole year? Does that mean I haven't done any business, this year or last year or whatever the case may be? But if your entity is inactive, then that gives you some leverage there where you could probably just dissolve it, because if you make it active, then it will become required
So,
research.
how will this affect foreign-owned businesses or foreign companies operating in the United States?
Foreign companies operating in the United States, as far
Yeah.
as I know, they would be exempt. Now, and again, you could research that, but
Mhm.
according to this list, it doesn't seem like a foreign company that's operating in the US will fall in this category. But then when you talk about foreign companies too, that's a whole nother element. So again, consult, consult. And I think this is a good, um, I think this is a good lesson for us as a culture, as a people. We need consultants who we can trust
Right.
because none of us know everything. And we need to stop acting like we do because we don't. It's not even humanly possible. You
No.
know, I know some things about taxes. I don't know everything about taxes by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know everything. I'm very niche. I know I got my little, my scope and my area of expertise is very limited. It's just like an attorney. Hey, just because someone's an attorney doesn't mean they know all law. Law is very specific. You might be a corporate lawyer or a civil lawyer or a criminal lawyer. So you need to know, we need to have consultants, people who we can consult with and develop the habit of having a network where we can get reliable information. Who do I go to see, when I have, a tax problem? Who am I going to ask? Because if you just go on the internet, there's going to be all kinds of answers, but you need some specificity, right? If I want to buy real estate, who am I going to call? Who am I going to talk to,
Yeah.
right? If I want to be on a successful radio show, who am I going to call? I'm going to call Ron, right? So we need that. We need to develop a network as a foundation to help us move forward as a people and as a culture.
Do you know if there's any measures in place for the against unauthorized access or misuse of the data collected from us under the CTA?
Well, accordingly, that information is not supposed to be shared outside of legal uh, legal responsibility. So now, obviously, FinCEN is part of the United States government, right? The IRS is part of the United States government, right? So if the U.S. Treasury Department is part of the U.S. government, so if one other branch of the U.S. government wants Steven Hutchinson's information about his company, I don't think FinCEN is going to tell him no. You're going to say, of course you can. We can give you his information. We got it because he's required to provide it to us. And therefore, if there's any type of investigation, I mean, come up with any kind of rationale as to why, especially since the passing of the Patriot Act. Remember the Patriot Act after
Exactly.
9/11, which meant that now the government and its agencies, what was that, the National Security, NSA, I think it's National Security Association, has the right to basically spy on all U.S. citizens because anybody could be a terrorist or whatever, especially since 9/11 with the Bush administration, they established the Patriot Act. Now that we have the Patriot Act, with the Patriot Act, people can, everything is up for grabs in the Patriot Act
Yeah.
because they could just say it's national security. And they say it's national security, you don't have any rights. Okay. If they say that, oh, he's a threat to national security, all my rights are gone. I don't have any.
Wow. One other question is, why was this not put out like commercials or something like that? I still fail to see not one thing on all the news people and even I brought up to a couple reporters here in San Antonio. They haven't heard about it. So why is this like a best kept secret?
I will allow your imagination to explore explore that one.
Because
That's you know what I'm saying?
if you look at it, this was passed in 2023 by Congress. It was implemented
2021,
in 2021. It was implemented in
2024.
2024. So there's a 2-year lag before it was implemented. But I didn't hear about it until I talked to you back in February. So imagine me times a million. That's I'm gonna put it like that. They have a small business, especially minority owned, that don't know about it. And to this day, there's still nothing on. Matter of fact, I went to the site, FinCEN, and there was the lady, I forget her name, with the Treasury Department. I can't remember her name. She was shocked why so many people haven't signed up for it yet. The numbers were low. They were expecting better numbers than what they got. Well, you got better numbers. You told everybody about it. So,
Exactly.
I'm sort of shocked by that they even bring that up, because this is going to catch a lot of people on January 1st off guard. What's going to catch them off guard is when they get their first bill.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about a bill that Congress made. I'm talking about a bill you got to pay money to the Treasury Department, which will hit you up when you do your income tax. All that's going to be tied in together.
Yes.
Man, I'm glad I did mine already, because I hate to sit up there and do my tax and find, oh, you also owe $5,000 for being late on this right here, because that's how they're gonna get you. Because they do people who owe money on not back taxes on child support, school loans. You think you're getting a great big refund coming back, all of a sudden you get a letter say you ain't getting nothing back because you owe this money.
That's right.
Man.
So, and I also put this under the category of financial literacy, you know, because we live in a country where you have to be financially proactive. You have to be proactive in getting your financial information. It's not going to come to you in your email. It's not going to come to you in a book, nicely packaged, even though most people wouldn't even read a book. But it's just not being provided. And it's not an obligation of the government. It's not an obligation of the educational institutions. It's not an obligation of of corporate America. It's nobody's obligation to give you financial knowledge. No one's obligation. It's up to you, which is basically like it's the nature of the economy that we live in. Like sometimes I talk about the difference between the 20th century economy and the 21st century economy. One of the major differences that I've observed growing up in the 20th century is that in the 20th century, corporate America, government, educational resources had more accountability and responsibility to the citizens. Now, in the 21st century, they are removing all their accountability and responsibility. It's like, you're on your own. Figure it out.
Yeah. You know, I would think if you got a LLC like in the state of Texas, that somebody will grow a brain, because they sure know how to send out. I get that in the mail every quarter. Every quarter I get your sales tax are due. I get that. I'll get an email for that. You would think with this Corporate Transparency Act that's coming up, they will send something. You know, if you register the state, you would think that somebody has some common sense and send that out.
You would even think that someone would have sued them. There would be a lawsuit about this, just based on these basic principles that you're talking about, right? Because when the IRS attempted to create a law that said tax preparers had to take a course to be a tax preparer, someone sued the IRS, and the IRS lost, and they were not able to create that law. But now that this is already a law, like I don't even know what the means would be, like except filing a lawsuit.
Yeah.
But it's a law now. It's actually a law. So, it would have to be something that would be undone, which is, I don't know, it seems highly unlikely to me that it could be undone. But the damage that is going to cause, is going to cause Congress as well as the Treasury Department. They're going to have to do something. Like you said, the numbers are low. They're going to start sending out all these bills. It's not just going to affect the taxpayer, it's going to affect the country's economy as well. Because all of these people who you're going to be finding and sending to jail, those are your damn taxpayers. You know what I'm saying? You need them, right, to pay taxes. But if you're going to find me and put me in jail, where's your benefit? What's your true benefit do you get from that as a country? Because the country, I was looking at the revenue, and anybody can and should look this up. Look at the revenue of the United States government from individual taxpayers compared to corporate taxes. So let me ask you, who do you think provides the most tax revenue to the government? These huge multinational, international corporations that are worth, it's over $1 trillion and all that, or the working class?
Alex, I would choose the working class.
By far. By far.
Yeah.
Right? And then the irony there is, whenever the politicians talk about tax cuts, which taxes are they talking about cutting? Because they use this term tax cut. Tax cut is like a dog whistle. Like, what the hell does that mean? What taxes? Whose taxes? Taxes. How much? Everybody's, oh yeah, tax cut, tax cut. Yeah, we all want tax cuts. Yeah, but I ain't talking about your taxes. They're not talking about cutting your taxes. Mm-hmm. That's a very general statement. Tax cuts. Under the administration from 2016 to 2020, there were major tax cuts. But those major tax cuts, remember, the corporate tax was at 35%, right? And of course, corporations weren't paying that anyway, because we kept hearing how companies like Walmart, Amazon, all these companies were not paying any federal taxes. As a matter of fact, they're getting hundreds of $millions in refunds because they had entire teams of tax lawyers, tax strategists, tax accountants who focus on how to not pay taxes, how to avoid taxes, because avoiding taxes is perfectly legal. Evading taxes is illegal.
Yeah.
But avoiding taxes is perfectly legal. More word trickery, really. But that being what it may. So even with that consideration, the corporate tax went from 35% down to 21%. That's what? 14% drop in corporate taxes. So when they talk about tax cuts, the dog whistle is really tax cuts for people who are wealthy, corporations, who are actually already paying a disordinate amount of taxes anyway. And you can do the research because it's all public record. People don't look at it, but it's all public information.
Mm. On that note, I could say this, that this CTA will be the silent killer for small businesses. If you don't know about it, you will know about it when you got to close your doors or or the state or the federal government come put a lock on it. I hate saying
Yes.
it, but that's where it's going to come down to before people open up their eyes. So,
And that is a fact. That is, and then and always the question is, let's follow the money. Who benefits from that? Right? Like, because that's always, every detective, every investigator, whenever they want to find out who committed a crime or who done it, it's always a question, who benefits?
yes.
Right? And it may not be obvious, but if you go down that lane, you usually find out like what's going on, what the deal is.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever the situation may be, my personal opinion, it's always better to be in the know than it is to be ignorant. Because a lot of people are willfully ignorant. They're like, I don't want to hear the bad news. I don't want to hear no bad news. Well, welcome to planet Earth, because you need that bad news so you know how to create some good news. But if you don't even know the bad news, how you going to create your good news?
That's true.
Right?
That's true. All right, Mr.
Thank you for tuning in to WSAN Radio. Catch us on our YouTube channel, WSAN Radio SA. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button.